introduce you to Afro Crew, who is an African dance crew here within our Kennedy High School.
Lọ́dún yìí, ọdún tó bọ̀, credit alert, steady cash out, new whip alert, fat bank account, alert títí, ọdún dídí, credit alert. DJ Wisa from here.
Give you guys a very nice speech I wrote years ago. It's called The Blackboard. If you like any line, you can snap. You can say whatever you want to. You can say Jesus, hallelujah, anything. All right. This is The Blackboard. If a black man has an earring, a do-rag, a chain, he's considered a drug dealer. But if a white guy does it, it is considered as fashion. You see, one day, a young black boy once wore an earring to school. He was told to take it off because it was violating school dress policies. The very next day, a white boy from the same school wore 2 earrings and a shirt that said single AF. The same assistant principal looked at him and said, "Nice shirt." If a black man dies from a gang violence, everyone looks at him and says, "Well, I guess he chose our life." But they forget that he didn't get the same opportunities that you got. That same opportunities that you denied him of when he applied for a job just because of his color of his skin. So, I guess that's the Blackboard. It's the Blackboard when a successful young black man is driving in his car at 8 p.m. and gets pulled over by a cop with adrenaline rushing through his veins while being asked questions like, "Where's your license, son?" Or, "What are you doing in this area, son?" Or, "Where did you get this car from, son?" That was the very first time I realized that there were 2 meanings to the word son. You see, when a cop says son to a white man, he means, "Son, like, I'm definitely not gonna arrest you for resistance, son. Like, son, like, you can just go by showing me your license, son. Like, son, like, have a very nice day, son." But when a cop says it to a black man, he means, "Boy, boy, or drug dealer, or thief, or I know he's definitely gonna resist, son, or I'm gonna shove my knee down his neck till he can't breathe, son. So I guess that's the black fault. I was born in Africa, and growing up, we all saw America as a very rich, equal, and snowy country. But after 4 years of living here, I really understood what the American dream was. I realized that Americans see my skin color as a bomb which is about to go off in 5 seconds. I realized that if I'm wearing a chain and some Jordan and some do-rag, I am considered as a bag-stealing thief. I realized that in order to be respected as a black man in America, you would have to wear a clean suit, have a bald haircut, have a nice shoe, and know a white guy named Connor. And I wondered to myself, is this the America I dreamed of living in? And how would I tell my people back home about the black fraud? But meanwhile, our ancestors didn't ask to be here hundreds of years ago, but yet they built the American dream. So, tell me this. What if I told you I was a magician? What if I told you that I could make us skin colors? Are you gonna do it? Are you willing to give away your privilege? Are you brave enough to face your own police, knowing that you're not safe? So please answer this. Please. Who's got a fault now? Thank you.
All right, next up we have Wilsey and Ahmed with their dance, We the Bridge.
The bridge is men and women, famous and unknown, leaving paths of memories, timeless stepping stones. I follow in the shadows of heroes without names and keep the faith of elders who lean on hickory canes. I hear the beat of Africa drumming deep within and bear the scars of slavery beneath my bronze skin. I stand with valiant soldiers who claim the victory and jump in jubilation with slaves at long last free. I rest on sturdy shoulders of farmers greeting dawn and take on the handiwork of simple folk long gone. I savor soulful flavors
That simmer way down south.
and take to heart the stories passed down by word of mouth. I heed the words of protest that leaders dare to speak. I march with many thousands, take my struggles to the street. The river to tomorrow is as long as it is wide. The bridge will get me over, see me to the other side. The past is the foundation, the future the next band. Will bridge the mighty river, brothers, sisters, hand in hand.
Okay, I'm Lena, and I'm reading a poem written by another student at Kennedy called Beautiful. Sometimes people notice the bad traits of my beauty, being tall, being skinny, being fat, not having the perfect skin or the perfect smile with straight white teeth. They tend to criticize my looks and my height an inch. I try to go along with everything they do in today's world, but I'm trying to make growth in escaping myself for who I am and not for who society wants me to be. Is this what you consider to be beauty? Being tall, skinny, not fat, having the perfect smile with straight white teeth. Society defines being beautiful in a very different way. Society wants you to change yourself and become someone you're not. Society wants you to believe that you are not beautiful. But you don't have to feel that way because beauty is within you. You don't have to look some type of way to be beautiful if you believe you are beautiful. No one should tell you otherwise. Why does beauty cause a lot of pain? Beauty shouldn't make you feel bad about yourself. Beauty shouldn't look like everyone else. Beauty for a girl to have a deep voice that is not considered to be beautiful. Wait, are we all supposed to just sound like every other girl? Isn't being different what's supposed to make us beautiful? Sounding like everyone else or looking like everyone else. That would be like looking at one color all the time. Seeing different colors all the time is more beautiful than one color.
Yeah, it is.
Beauty, beauty, beauty. That's what everyone says defines you, but there's more to you than what people see on the outside. Beauty should be about embracing yourself. Beauty is all about being yourself. Don't become someone you're not, just to be loved by everyone. Even if you do, not everyone is going to love or like you. Be you and let the people who want to love you they will love you for who you are and not for what they see on the outside. As a young black girl, I am proud to say that I love my black thick hair, I love my brown eyes, I love my small body, I love my brown skin that glows when the sun shines on me. I love myself and everything that comes with me, and so should you.
Reading I Am Me. I was 11 when the world decided my own identity, the way people would perceive my appearance and not me. It started off small, simple comments and comparisons made. My hijab was used as a defense against the no-hood school and rule, all the way up to become a towel head. So I tried to deflect, but inside I felt scared about what happened next. I was 12, my friends became foes in my eyes. I was too weak to speak, too scared to lose somebody, because I didn't know wrong from right. It was playful pushing and joking around until someone crossed the line and ripped off my scarf in a blink of an eye. Ironic, I was the day I switched from slip-ons to the one that floated in the wind. It was a joke, they were kidding, laughing it off instead of apologizing, but my heart stopped in my chest. But I laughed it off too, because I was scared of what would become of me next. I was 13 when I had to grow up and realize that even if I tried to ignore the red flags and fit in, all they saw was a terrorist. And when I shifted and tried to shed light on my black side, I was seen as loud and ghetto, a stereotype. Because I was 13 when I felt my heart drop into the bottomless pit in my chest. I was 13 when I felt my body shake from the rush of adrenaline spiked by fear. I was 13 when I felt my throat constrict and feel like sandpaper every time I swallowed. I was 13 when I felt my eyes well up like a waterfall, leaving my vision blurred. I was 13 when I finally felt scared of the world, of even going outside. I felt like a stranger to my friends and in my family's eyes. All because of the panic that was built up from 3 years of comments and racist schemes that I ignored, that escalated from no hoods in school to towel head and a playful rip of my hijab to now being called a terrorist and that I had bombs underneath. I was told the next 9/11 would occur with me. I was told I was a bomber, a terrorist, and at that moment, I couldn't breathe. At that moment, panic and fear washed over me. My heart twisted like thorns and pricked at my chest. My tears burned and left a trail of anger ignited by fear that leaves a jagged scar in my heart, leaving an imprint in my brain of the type of racism and hate a person of color can experience every day. It's been 4 years since I've seen that 13-year-old girl who had no bounds, who fluttered and soared and ran her mouth, who stood proudly in the spotlight in an aurora that shimmered so bright, so unapologetic and bold. It's been 4 years since I felt like me. It's been 4 years and the trauma has left a jagged scar in me. It's been 4 years since I felt like my old self. It's been 4 years and I still haven't fully found myself. I feel as if my soul was floating through endlessly, and my body is following blindly in its steed. And when my eyes connect with those people who made my scar, my stomach retches in dread. My skin crawls as a sickening feeling comes over me. All I want to do is go home, wrapped in my scarf, the cocoon, my safe haven through my despair. It's ridiculous how of all those people who only utter words of hate, only one apologized to this day, and left my shell full of distaste because I hated how I changed myself. I hated how I resented myself. I hate those people who took that scar on me. I hate that people can be so cruel and mean. I hate the world and how we can't see each other through blue hues. I hate myself for ever letting the world choose which hue to see me through. I hated myself forever. I hated my hijab for making me stick out. I hated my religion for being stereotyped by other sins. I hated my skin and the way people treated me because of it. I hated having to grow up at a tender age because of the world's view of me. I hated myself for letting people take advantage of me. I hated myself for ever letting that happen to me. But if I could go back in time, I wouldn't change anything, because it's not my fault for what they did and how they wished to perceive me. And because of those hardships that made me grow mature at a tender age, it made me love myself and cherish my culture and faith in my own way, and allowed me the courage to say, I am not a terrorist. I am not a target for your bullshitted stereotypes and ideologies. I'm not a towelhead and an excuse for your no-hood school rule. I am Somali before I'm an American to you. My name is not Siham, Siham. It's colonized to be Siham to you. The correct way my mother says is how I should be addressed to you. My name's Siham. And maybe your hate is what made me grow up and view the world and myself in a hateful way, but my hijab and culture is what brought me up in this world today. Because I wasn't brought up by a simple cloth or scarf or towel head in your eyes but a hijab. I was shaped by powerful immigrant parents who gave me this chance. I grew up with languages that fluttered out the tongue with flavorful spices that enticed my taste buds. I was raised in a world of color, flavor, spice. I was deformed by America. And now I truly know what the hijab and being a person of color really stands for. I wasn't raised by the red, white, and blue with 50 stars, national anthem type beat. I was raised by white and blue, single stars, Somalia to Sul. I was raised by flavor. I grew up with hate and flourished in my culture and faith. I was reborn into the authentic version of myself through your eyes. And even though your hate is the reason I struggle to find myself, I slowly am, piece by piece. And even though I show this vulnerable side of me, I don't want your sympathy or fake pity. I want your understanding of the impact racism and hate can do. And with that, I can now finally give myself a title to my identity that you try to strip away from me. Because I'm who I'm meant to be. I'm a proud Black Muslim. I am me.
New happiness in the form of vivacious bitter melons and stacked crates of Asian pears crowding our backyard in the summer. Tucked away in dusty, yellowing photo albums are pictures of him and his produce, smiling wider than in any of our family photos. I must have inherited at least part of his fixation with food, because during those hot summers, my tiny 8-year-old body would eat at least half of whatever he grew with ease. Year after year, without fail. My hands were sticky, and my belly was full. My father's father grew up in a rural area of Guangdong, a southern province in China that suffered greatly from famine wrought by the Chinese Cultural Revolution. It makes sense why he cared so much for our tiny, overgrown jungle. But as a child, I never questioned or searched for any deeper meaning in the lychee and squash that flourished in abundance. Growing up, the only language I knew was English. My Cantonese was near non-existent, and my Mandarin was a crude imitation of actual. If someone were to ask me then how being Chinese impacted my identity, I think I would have shrugged it off. Maybe it was important to some, but I'm a second-generation, half-white, all-American girl. I wasn't rejected by American society like many of my peers for their accents and upbringings. Instead, my Chineseness was hidden away in cut-up fruit offered an apology and red envelopes all quickly shedded at a moment's notice. Sitting in crowded classrooms, I blended in with the masses in a way my family couldn't. Asian people look weird, a fellow first grader sneered after he had seen my dad for the first time. His comment caught me by surprise. Jacob, you know I'm Asian, right? Yeah, but you're different. You don't have those squinty eyes. You look normal. I quietly sank down into my seat. These situations played out year after year, but it was fine because I wasn't Asian, wasn't tiny eyes, pan face Asian. All I had to do was tell a couple of white lies and I was part of the group again. But that too was only temporary. My light brown hair wasn't exotically black like my dad's after all, but in 5th grade, as I carefully studied my reflection in its chipped mirror, I could tell it was many shades darker than before. No longer was I blissfully unaware of my standing with my white peers, their off-color comments sticking to me like stinging nettles. I laid down on my bed. Sitting neatly on my bedside table was a stack of toddler-level flashcards of basic Mandarin vocabulary. Bored, I flipped the cards, initially barely glancing at one before moving on to the next. But then, a pattern emerged. The words that were once familiar to me now looked strange. I couldn't parse any meaning out of those thick, black lines. I set them down and dug through boxes of old mementos in my closet, finding neatly stacked cards written by my father's mother, half in Cantonese and half in English. Rifling through the pile, the only words I could recognize were my Chinese name. I sat there on the rough carpet of my bedroom floor, surrounded by loose papers, staring at those 3 characters. I realized that the words that once flowed between me and my family with ease were now stiff and stuttered out of an unsure mouth. The next day, I downloaded Duolingo. What started as a simple way to regain lost knowledge became an obsession. I would spend hour after hour flitting through digital lessons, making mediocre progress. I carefully rehearsed introducing myself in the mirror, the syllables falling out of my mouth like sand. My face grew hot when my American eyes couldn't read the rusted Chinatown billboards, when my American mouth couldn't even say thank you to our waiter in the crowded dim sum restaurant. That insecurity turned into a complex of doubt. Could I even call myself Chinese American? I became absorbed in the rigorous studying of a homeland that I had never been to. By 8th grade, through great effort, I could introduce myself with my Chinese name that still felt foreign on my own tongue. Could even text my loved ones in their own language. But I couldn't shake the feeling of loss. That there was a part of me that would forever be out of my reach. People often think the children of immigrants as a connection between 2 worlds, the unifying individual born of 2 cultures. But emerging from the dark maw of middle school, I began to talk to people who understood my plight, the children of immigrants who weren't bridges, but lost in the vast sea between cultures. We became quick friends by swapping anecdotes and stories about our own cultures. I ranted about vibrant red cutouts and disgusting home remedies tied to Chinese medicine with fondness. About my father's father, for who the term grandpa sounded forced in lieu of a yeah, and most importantly, I waxed poetic about the trees that produced fruits with names I couldn't pronounce, nurtured with tanned, bony hands, meant crooked from arthritis and years of labor. When we rambled about our families and traditions together, sitting in those empty classrooms, being Chinese stopped feeling like a performance. Cutting up a recently purchased Asian pear, I can't help but compare its bland, watery flesh to the tiny but sweet fruits our own tree would produce. The perfect cross between an apple and a pear. Being Chinese isn't in the technicalities. It isn't about the precise tones or simple grammar that I would regularly fumble. Being Chinese is something passed on from generation to generation, located in the silent love provided in food, in the small things that you don't notice until they're gone. When I close my eyes, I can picture it. My dad's crinkled, smiling face, the bright snapping of firecrackers on warm August evenings. Piles of expertly wrapped egg rolls lined up on kitchen counters. I find my happiness under the shade of pear trees, where I've stashed away my Chineseness from prying eyes. Our broken wood fence protects it so that I alone can relish in its sweet fruit.
When we were young, like cilantro shoots, beholden to lemonade and late summer, we would go to the masjid on Sunday, a beautiful twittering Sunday, a streaming of lights on Sunday, wearing our headscarves for prayer at noon. Our scarves were long, shocks of white in which our twiggy selves would drown, but our hair still grew longer. Long like the love of our mothers, long like the skill of our mothers, long like the braids of our mothers, woven achingly tight down our backs. The ends of our braids would stick out, uncontained by the hem of our scarves. Our colorful hair ties on full display, black and brown tips would swish and sway, tickling us through our shirts as we stood for prayer at noon. When I was young as a dandelion, even on Sunday, you wouldn't think of me as my mother's daughter. Herbs bloom and dandelions go to seed, and our twiggy selves grew taller. We grew wise to the culture around us, wise to the Jesus around us, wise to America around us, and stopped coming for prayer at noon. We swapped shining Sundays for school, exchanged headscarves for homework, we said. But the truth was, we were running. From judgment and stares, we were running. From do you have hair, we were running, away from our mother's arms. In our mirrors, we saw American girls, no longer the miniatures of our mothers. With our American accents polished to shine, at our mother's bare feet, we drew the line of relics rejected and backwards, along with prayer at noon. Once the stars and stripes changed me, even on Sundays, you would never think of me as my mother's daughter. Now we're old, like rotting cucumber vines. With a nostalgia, we look backward. Back at the love of our mothers. Back at the skill of our mothers. Back at the braids by our mothers, woven lovingly tight down our backs. It's part of a past I cannot keep, for I'd rejected it all in my youth. And my hands cannot braid like my mother's. My scarf does not lay like my mother's. My hair won't obey like my mother's, and I've forgotten how to pray at noon. In my mirror, I wrestle bangs and cloth, and the tip of my braid that pops free. And I try to be more like my mother, remember something from my mother, but all that I have is a half-wrapped scarf and the shame of Americanized me. Try as I might to pray in my scarf on Sundays, I'm only pretending to be my mother's daughter.
That's my class friend.
All right. This is a piece I like to call Young Man. Here you go, young man. Young man? Young man? Why did they think I was a boy? I'm a girl, right? Do I look like a boy? Is that really what people see me as? Now see, at the age of 10, I was the tomboyest tomboy you had ever seen. My bright blonde hair was cut just beneath the ear, my shoulders broad, and my entire wardrobe could be found in the boys section of Kohl's. Loose-fitting, masculine-presenting clothing was what inevitably filled the shopping cart each trip. Under no circumstance would I ever have been found wearing anything remotely feminine. I just never had this overwhelming sense of femininity. Girls' clothing was too tight for me, both internally and externally. I was a girl, but the clothes of a boy were freeing. So when I packed my bag for my annual trip to Florida to meet my 4 cousins, my suitcase always contained a collection of men's Reebok dry-fit shirts and this one pair of navy blue Nike shorts that went past the knee. Year after year, my cousins saw the same tomboy version of me, and year after year, I watched them change rapidly. I saw them and felt stagnant in how I looked, but I felt great comfort in the way I dressed. Despite the discomfort, I soon came to realize it brought onto others. Naturally, I wore that combination of clothing on the highly anticipated day we went to Busch Gardens, an amusement park. Usually, the Florida sun beamed down on us all day, and it did when we left. But unfortunately, the weather changed into downpour rain as soon as we arrived. Collectively, my family ran to the entrance of the park, soaking wet from the surprise conditions. After entering the gate, the Busch Gardens workers moved quickly, creating a makeshift station to hand out complimentary rain ponchos. We speedily joined the line that was forming, impatiently waiting, desperately in need of coverage from the onslaught of rain, and as I neared the front and reached for my poncho, the worker muttered those 5 words. "Here you go, young man." I couldn't believe it. The worker believed I was a boy, even though I was a girl, right? I questioned everything I knew about myself and who I thought I was. Was I even a girl if people couldn't recognize me as one? However, I wasn't angry at that worker. I knew I dressed in a way society deemed masculine, a way that society believed was meant for a boy and not a girl. Masculine equaled boy, right? I knew this. I had always stuck out like a sore thumb, especially in family photos. My girl cousins, Sarah and Taryn, would be effortlessly positioned in their skirts and dresses, while I repeatedly adjusted my overly long khaki shorts and androgynous sweater. I was so much more comfortable in those clothes, but I felt isolated every time. I did not envy my cousin's style. Their girly style wasn't for me. Instead, I envied the simplicity of their relationship with femininity and womanhood. I wanted to show my womanhood without sacrificing my comforts. I was a girl, but I couldn't show society that. In the eyes of society, my cousins were instantly girls, and I was a question mark, just because of my lack of femininity. And the Busch Gardens worker calling me a young man was a prime example of that. I was just a 10-year-old girl dressing how I needed to feel comfortable, like any 10-year-old should be. That shouldn't deduct from my womanhood, right? Being misgendered shouldn't be something anyone has to worry about. No one should have to fear that their identity can be questioned because of their clothing choices. No one should endure isolation because their clothing lacks what society expects of them. Why is femininity instantly associated with womanhood? Why do we automatically assume that someone is a certain gender, or any gender at all, because of the way they present themselves?
The experience I had as a young girl was not an outlier in our society. There is a brick wall within our society that blocks people from separating femininity and masculinity with associations of a certain gender. It is sad to know that many individuals have to settle with being constantly associated with something they are not. Someone's existence and identity should never be invalidated because they do not align with society's standards. The menacing force of the public deprives countless humans of their natural rights to be their truest selves. I was stripped of confidence in my womanhood because of my lack of femininity. If I wanted to prove myself as a girl, I had to be feminine, even though I didn't want to be, even though that wasn't me. I just wanted to be seen for who I knew I was, a girl. Next up, we have Lainey with I Dyed My Hair Blue.
First, I'd like to thank Seham and Maria for coming along with me on my journey with hijab. This poem's called I Dyed My Hair Blue. I dyed my hair black, then bronze, then pink, then purple, and then I dyed my hair blue. The bleach melted my hair into thin strands that broke off like cotton candy. Granted, this was largely due to user error. But that was the first time I ever truly considered what my hair meant to me. Growing up in a mixed family was more than hard. Christian or Muslim, white or Arab, I never knew which to choose, nor did I know I needed to make a decision. All I knew was that to my mom's family, I was Lainey, and to my dad's, I was Lanika. My dad would take us to the masjid occasionally during Ramadan, and I would spend weeks in the Michigan mosques as a child during the summer of my youth with my foreign family. My dad taught us cultural practices. He taught me about kahla. He taught me how to light the hot coals so commonly burned in our household. But I could always feel a piece of me looming over the other. White over Arab, Arab over white. But as most of us can relate, I always chose white over Arab. And I stood there, melted hair in hands. But I still dyed my hair blue. I think blue hair was the last straw for me in a way. I had nothing to lose, and my hair was more damaged than ever. It made me think, who am I doing this for? The hair dyeing, the eyebrow plucking, tucking in my lips, avoiding turning my head away from people at all costs, for my hooked nose was a giveaway to the right eye. I've lost a lot of white friends the past few years because, as some of you may know, my hair isn't blue. Though you can't see, my hair is a rich brown, and I choose to cover my rich brown hair with scars of all colors. Colors I couldn't imagine dyeing my hair anymore. But as the story goes, it wasn't always this way. During my freshman year, I still had freshly dyed hair the color of khud. One of the times we were together with my boyfriend, my race was brought up, and he called me white. Though I purposely passed this way and took all the right measures to look as such, the words burned in my ears. I'm Arab, at least. I thought I was. Did I even have the right to call myself that anymore? Did I really hide every Arab aspect of myself to the public eye? Ultimately, this was a turning point, but it still took me 2 years to even utter the words, I am Arab. Throughout the past year, I took the steps needed to physically look like myself again. I let my hair grow, I blended the blue into brown, I let my eyebrows grow thick and full, my lips were left relaxed, and they even blossomed every time I willed the words, I am Arab. Even my nose grew on me. Looking at myself in the mirror, it felt right. I looked just like my dad. I look like my dad. I look Arab. But the confusion left from questions like, are you Muslim like your dad? Or are you Christian like your mom? Left me in a spiral. I knew the answer being, I am Muslim, but I couldn't utter the words. How could I? I didn't go to Sunday school like everyone else. I didn't have the confidence to step into a local masjid. I didn't even have any sort of Muslim community outside of my family. But even they were from an entirely different state. I didn't even remember how to pray, so I started by covering my hair. If I didn't act the part, I could certainly look it. And again, my physicalities brought out my truth. I could finally utter the words, I am Muslim. Though my hair isn't damaged anymore, I oil it every Saturday night. I even do the occasional hair mask, and since it's usually covered, it doesn't suffer from the unpredictable weather. But sometimes I wonder what would happen if I continued to choose white over Arab. What would happen if I took my scarf off again? What would happen if I dyed my hair blue?
Everyone stresses the importance of parenting, the long-lasting effects it has on a child's life. I mean, of course, they're your first role model. You learn what to expect from the world based on what they tell you. You learn to value the things they say are worth valuing based on their experiences. You learn to create a vision of a happy future based on their guidance. You have a stronger sense of self when you know where your base is, or who your base is. Everyone stresses the importance of having both parents in your life. But the conversation shouldn't stop there. What about kids with adoptive parents of a different race? What about mixed kids with parents who don't look like them? But something I don't hear enough about is the disconnect you get from your role models as a second-generation immigrant. The world is so big and so vast. It's way too big for a child to have a grasp on what any of it means. But when your family comes from a different country, you end up navigating a whole different world. Those things can leave a bitter taste on both ends of the relationship. How frustrating is it for a parent to not have the tools to teach their kids how to navigate a world they're still navigating? How frustrating is it for a child to be stuck in the middle, always conflicted about who they are? A lot of immigrants are accused of rejecting their parents' culture. Some do. Even I did at some point. But it's a common experience for a reason. When you're not surrounded by a community of people who are like you, you're not allowed to grow up the same as them. You're not allowed to bring your family customs into a public space. You're not allowed to eat with your hands. You're not allowed to have your hair out in a professional settings. You're taught to be unsure at a young age. You're taught to be watchful. You are taught that your culture is bad manners. You are taught that you are always wrong and a white man is always right. You. Am I the problem? Am I doing something wrong? How do I have to change to be accepted? These are thoughts that drive many Black women like me. And while they are learning who they want to be, we are learning who we can't be. We are taught to question ourselves. We are taught to hate ourselves. I grew up thinking I was weird, because in this country, it's what I am. Have y'all ever seen that one movie with that dark-skinned immigrant girl? Yeah, me neither. Everyone pushes the narrative to be different, be an individual. But for people like me, my people, it was never a choice. Hey, but at least I learned a lot from being whitewashed. It taught me how to adapt. It taught me how to listen. It taught me to be attentive. Because if I couldn't, taught me how to find similarities, even when it seemed like there were none. Because if I couldn't, then I was truly alone. But what I began to notice as I grew older was the way I was naturally drawn to other Black girls. Not because we were the same. As an immigrant, I grew up completely different. But because a Black girl had the capacity to understand. And that's something that comes harder for a white man. They don't have to decipher a world outside of theirs, or their father, or their father's fathers. But a Black girl could read me. A Black girl doesn't expect, she listens. A Black girl doesn't judge, she sees you. I'm seeing so many Black girls all over social media enter the field of psychology. They love it, me included. Because not only has the world traumatized a Black girl, but it gave her an extreme sense of self-awareness. A Black girl is every Black girl's friend. And when a Black girl is matured by a younger age, it isn't by choice. It is a survival tactic. When asking for more representation, it isn't a diversity thing, it's a wellness thing. It's hard to understand how crucial seeing a role model is in your life when you have one. But a child should be able to feel safe. But being taught to fear the world, being taught that your place isn't here, being taught to navigate the world in protection mode, being taught that in order to succeed, you will have to prove that you're acceptable, leaves a bitter taste in every black girl's mouth. In my daydreams, I like to think of a place where the act of loving myself isn't a protest. Alright, next up, we have Imani and Micheline with a reading of Still I Rise by Maya Angelou.
Alright, I'll just be reciting this by myself because my partner in crime got sick. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why you beset with gloom? Cause I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like the moons and the suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing on high, still I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, showed falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries. Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awfully hard. Cause I laugh, I've got gold mines digging my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds in the meeting of my thighs? Out of huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise, bringing the gifts of my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. Up next we have Angela Madlock reading a poem.
Hello. This poem was performed tonight, and it was made. I did not write this. All right, and it is called USA. It seems someone has to die, so why the fuck not I? Cause I was born in this country with the system I protest, invisibly protecting me. 9/11 jarred us. A single day. They always live in fear that way. Don't worry about. Oh wait. Midwest, middle class, middle finger to the man. Don't worry about hiding my kids. Bombs and hiding, shrapnel flying, spies confiding. Sleep sound at night, cause I can. Privilege gives the upper hand. Up next, we have Salma.
Alright, this is a poem that I wrote about being a first-generation American. Being first generation comes with privilege and pain. Being first generation means your whole life is constantly being torn between two masses of land. Being first generation is not knowing where I belong. Being first generation comes with a burning desire to make my parents proud and give them everything they deserve for all the sacrifices they made for me to be where I am today. The pressure to get good grades, be the best student I can possibly be. People ask me, why are you always studying? Because I have the opportunities my father didn't. I had my education handed to me. My father didn't. I have the opportunity to succeed. I have the opportunity to break barriers. Despite all the obstacles my parents went through, they succeeded. So why shouldn't I? My parents walked so that I could run. Being first generation was never meant to be a breeze for the wind, but it means being the light that opens up a path for the future generations to come. I'm stressed, I'm determined, I'm passionate, but I am the difference. I am the first generation. Up next we have John Teen.
Hello, everybody. For everyone but hopefully you still get what I'm saying.
Is that right?
Okay. Pass face value. When someone asks simple questions like, what's your name? You answer with your given or preferred name. You know, the obvious things. But what if they throw in a trick question and ask, who are you? Or specifically, what makes you you? How would you answer? Would you turn to the color of your skin? Or your family's origin? Or maybe the places that you've lived? Would you talk about your hobbies and compose a list of your interests? If you interpret the phrase at face value, then yes, those would be correct. But that would be too diluted for the complex human. For the receiver always looks for the answer. True intentions hidden behind microaggressions. From the "are you really African?" spoken from Caucasian confusion, to the "why do you talk like that?" when I have spoken. Now let that set. Reset. Listen to it again. Ew, African booty scratcher. She must be an assimilator. What was really meant? Again, face value. Things you've all seen and heard but never truly deciphered, just blatantly ignored. What truly gets me is when people think this old behavior does me a favor. A coach once held a conversation with me after analyzing my body. He began with, have you ever considered doing track? I answered with, yeah, I did it in the 8th grade. Carries on to say, what about for high school? Ever thought about doing it for Kennedy? I reply, not really. I have too much going on with band and I wasn't really ever that good. He then responds with, well, you should reconsider because I know you're a runner just by looking at you. Have you figured out what's wrong? If not, neither did I at the time. I heard it as a recruitment offer for the track team, just like you. Look no further than its face value. But what I hear now is, look at the color of your skin. Don't stress your brain with intellectual things. You'd be better used to improve my team. What more is there to see? Exactly. When was there ever a me? Just the word used to hold possession of a specific entity, an object in space of pre-sculpted clay, simply existing through a cycle of night and day. There was no story to tell, just parts to play. If I may not confess, I find the question, what makes you you, utterly useless, because the receiver never needed an answer. What should be asked is, do you comply or do you rebel? Comply with the filter set over our eyes, or rebel in its freedom. Revel. For those who rebel are the true ones who have a story to tell, broken from the system through the achievement of those who came before. As for me, I strive to be one of the few that work past the world's views. So when they ask me what makes you you, I can list things that are true. What makes John T. and Zoe Carrera is faith. In my religion, Kwanzaa was never part of it, and the world we live in. Music, not just hip-hop, rap, and drill. African, not Maasai, Tanzanian, Congolese, or South African, just simply Burundian. And no, this doesn't mean I know how to hunt and kill. Fashion, meaning more than just liking Jordan and Nike, but appreciating clothes that are composed nicely together. Culture, a tonic of African and American. Refugee, most proudly, all because my family cared for my safety. Beauty, not natural beauty, but true beauty. True to oneself unapologetically. Honesty, first to myself and my own morality. Love, for myself and all else. Independence, to stand behind myself and no one else. Strive and balance, to preserve but not overdo. Patience and nonviolent, consideration of all aspects, but not tolerance. I probably won't throw a punch, but I can only stand so much. Expressive, not loud. If you can't stand it, you can always get out. Bilingual, even though with the first one I still struggle. Jontine is this bundle, more than just the wrapping and frame, or the situation I came. For I've looked past my face value and put the word me to good use. Thank you.
Okay, let's go. My ancestors didn't say the N-word. It was something that was said against them. Beaten by those words every second as their bloodshed tears leaked. Every time they were hanged from the bitter hands of the white oak tree. Every time they were separated from the world because of the deep-rooted blue of their skin. The N-word was just another symbol to lessen my people, to weaken them until they felt nothing. The tears they shed, the blood they bled, the shakes they quivered, the shouts for help they called, nothing came their way but the word of so much hate. That word even had some times that led us to some of my ancestors' very death. The hands of the white oak tree murdered my people. The words of the white oak tree were the murderers of my ancestors till their very last breath. My black peers say the N-word sometimes. It's something they feel comfortable with. It's something that they finally have control over. They were able to flip the script. They were able to dethrone the word, tuck it and change it until they could use as a friendly gesture towards one another. It was a symbol of togetherness, a symbol of power that they somewhat finally had, that they were able to bring face to face to one another. Strangers, but brothers. Strangers, but sisters. To shout out those words meant family, owning up to the spit that came out of their mouth as they shouted out. They had something that was given to them with hate, and they changed it to something positive. They changed the livelihood of their community into a family. But I have a story to tell you. My white coworker said the N-word. She feels comfortable saying it. So comfortable that she uses it in a professional workplace where people of different backgrounds and races put together in the same room. My white coworker said the N-word. She doesn't even care that she said it. I've heard her say it so many times that I can't even keep count. I confronted my boss, who was my white coworker's aunt. It's a family business. I was so scared to say anything because I knew somehow it was all going to turn on me. Guess what? It did. My boss started to ramble on and on the whole backstory of her niece. She grew up around a lot of places that said the word. She grew up with it. Her friends and family say it. Her boyfriends who are black say it. And to finish it off, my boss states she grew up around, let's just say, gangsters. Gangsters, huh? My white coworker says the N-word. I confront my boss does nothing but excuse this pure hatred. Well, she does do something. She tells my coworker to apologize. So, my coworker does, saying, I'm sorry if I offended you and all. This is what they do. They don't broadly apologize. They put it all on you to carry the weight. And after, she finishes it with saying, damn, you didn't have to snitch on me and all. Snitch on you? Okay. At that moment, I felt so alone. I was the one out of the two black people that worked there. I felt so small. For the whole day, I had to stay there and work because, honestly, I didn't know what to do. It was my first job. Reminiscing on this moment kind of gets me flustered. Sorry, guys. I couldn't even do anything because I was so shocked for that those people I worked with were plain out racist. My coworker said the N-word, and I wasn't comfortable with it. My ancestors had the N-word whipped onto them, full of so much foulness. But my black peers took the N-word by re-owning the word and changing the hatefulness and turning it into something positive, symbolize a family. This hate that was put on that word by the white men themselves is still thrown around the white men in the world. By the white men in the world. My white coworker says the N-word. She knows it's hateful, especially when she's saying it. So my question is to you people out there like my white coworker, why do you feel the need to say this word? Why do you want something that we finally had control over when you have control over everything else? Why do you say this word knowing the hate it brings towards me, my peers, and my ancestors? For us black people, it is our choice if we want to say the N-word. For you white people or non-black people in general, it is not a choice at all. So for God's sake, I am not comfortable.
I sit in class hearing the words that are directed at me. Bag, queer, gay. I must sit back and do nothing in fear of being found out. Yeah, I'm queer, but at what cost? Listening to my classmates constantly make fun of my people is disheartening, but also invigorating. It makes me realize what must be done. I must stand up and use my voice for the voiceless. But I also must put down my voice in support of the voiceless. I must listen and use my place to not overshadow others. When I hear my own family say these hateful things, I must sit back and take it because
Well, they're old and they're just from a different time. But if they're old enough to have knowledge over me, why are they now not old enough to have the knowledge that they shouldn't say those words, that they shouldn't believe those things, that they shouldn't act on those urges to hate my people? When I hear my aunt call me a genderqueer weirdo, I must sit back and be voiceless, or else I will cut her with my sharp tongue. When I was told, don't wear your rainbow pin to church, that was my cue to never show my real colors. When I hear my coworker complain that pronouns are so stupid, he gets mad at me when I call him girl. When I tell teachers in private that I prefer they, them pronouns, yet they refuse to call me by those pronouns, I ask myself the question, is it worth it? Is it worth it to use my voice when I know the situation won't get better? Is it worth it to use my voice when I know no one will care? And is it worth it to use my voice when I should be one of the voiceless? And up next is Kat presenting her poem.
Gotta unfold the paper here. So this is a story slash, little behind the scenes of who I am today. So I was born in Ukraine, and I was adopted at almost 2 years, so 1 year old. And on August 14th, we flew back from Ukraine, and the next day was my birthday, so I turned 2 when we got home. So who I am today and how I was raised started off with these people. Starting off with my dad. Ever since this purple, yellow, little green ball, I've been obsessed with sports, and specifically softball. I don't know why, it just is. I've played it my whole life. He is the one who pushes me to do better and be stronger and to never give up. And that one line that's always my favorite that comes to mind is never give up, never quit, never surrender. That line always sticks with me. He is my base. My dad is my base. Next is my mom. My mom is the artist in the family and the one who never gives up on me. I make a mistake, I earn the trust back, and we're still connected. My mom is the person, if I have a bad day, if I'm crying, I can always go to. The one who reminds me I'm beautiful. Next is my brother. I know he doesn't want to hear this, but Grant, you are my door, the one that opens and closes that door. Sometimes it's the conversations that aren't very long, but I know you care about. We'll play Pokemon cards on long car rides, or we'll make farting sounds and laugh until we're crying. Or it's those times when you're in a situation and I want to be the one to help you. The one conversation that if you walk away, I know that's when I need to shut up and just make sure I'm listening to you. Make sure I'm not interrupting. You are also the person who, if you are in a conflict, I'm the one person who wants to be there for you. But I know that you don't want me to be there because it's just your way of showing your love for me. Next, I have my grandpa, who's very special to me. It's those days where I can go to his house and he'll make an igloo for me out in the snow when I'm little, so I'll have somewhere to play. He's the person who lights up my day and makes me smile. The person who also lets me ride on the lawnmower and puts a little carpet down on the lawnmower so I can feel comfortable. Next is my grandma. My grandma is the person who, if I'm sick, will comfort me and feed me and make sure I'm okay. The one who checks up on me all the time. Next is my Aunt Lori. Sadly, she can't be here today because she had a knee surgery and she's recovering. She's recovering well, so that's good. My aunt is the person who makes me laugh. Have a rough day, I ask to go over to my aunt's house so then she can tell jokes and interrupt me when I'm talking just to make me laugh. The one person who was living in Colorado and we make long car rides and car trips to just go and see her. And she still made my day even though it took a long time to get used to the car rides. And
I know the first thing that you see of who I am right now is my shortness. I get that a lot. And hopefully we don't have the comments of, oh, have your parents watered you yet? Nope, we don't get those anymore because I take my shortness and my height, and I take my eyes and my hair, the way I dress, all in one piece, and present who I am with confidence. That's who I am today.
All right, okay, that concludes all of our performers today. Can I get a hand for them? One more round of applause. And can I also get a round of applause for all the teachers who helped us make this night happen?